I've been considering uninstalling Windows from my computer. The only real purpose I keep it around for is this feeling that I might use it for something in the future. Part of it is that I actually did pay for it. I had a free Windows 7 key from college, but I upgraded my professional to Ultimate Windows 10 because I wanted encryption and to be able to use the remote desktop feature, both of which require Ultimate. But since it's an upgrade to Ultimate, it's kind of a pain in the ass to do again. If it was a normal install, I could install directly into Windows 10, again into Ultimate, and not have a problem. But it was an upgrade from Windows 7 Professional. I had the Windows 7 Professional that I switched over to Windows 10 when it was free to do that, and then I upgraded that to Windows 10 Ultimate. Kind of a bit of a clusterfuck, but it makes it like, in the future, if I wanted to do it again, it would be a pain in the ass. And there is some software on Windows that I like, that I don't have access to. One of those things is Clip Studio Paint, which is a really good program that I really like. What I like about Clip Studio Paint is the online resources. It has like all the same kind of drawing tools that Krita has, right? Krita is basically on par with Clip Studio Paint, and actually Krita plus Gmic, I think it is, Gmic, is really cool. I'm recording during the day again, so yeah. It's really cool. It has tons of filters, and you can do all kinds of shit with it. So feature-wise, between the two, they're basically on parity, level of parity. I think Clip Studio Paint might be a little bit more polished in terms of animation stuff. It might have a bit of an edge. I'm not really here to like compare the features and argue which one's better. For my personal use, they're roughly equivalent. Except with Clip Studio Paint, it is super easy to be like, I want to download some background image and throw it into my scene, or I want to get like some like just some stock photos or some stock photo elements and just throw it in to my manga scene or whatever. It also has the 3D stuff. So that stuff is far better than anything Krita has in that same field. The pre-made gradients are super cool. I used those a lot when I was using Clip Studio Paint. If you look through the art that we've made, the software we use influences super strongly the kinds of things, because we find the things that are easy for us to do, and we apply those things in whatever ways we can. And so when we were in Clip Studio Paint, those gradients were just super easy. They were a thing we could do all the time. So they were pretty prevalent. But the reason why we've been thinking about this is due to a decision I made regarding how to set up Jakarutsu about 9 months ago. When I set up the current install that I have, I set it up with a 2 gigabyte root FS. And then I put the rest of the drive as home partition. So this let me have a fairly large home partition for doing working stuff on my SSD. So editing music and video stuff, I can load the big files onto SSD and then do whatever and then throw them on my archive drives, which are slower. I wanted to keep my base root install as small as possible. My initial thought with this was to possibly not even have X installed, possibly no Windows system, which I threw out immediately. I have a Windows system. I have X installed. I have Audacity installed. What do I all have installed? So I'm using LXDE as my window manager. I have HTOP installed. Actually, let's do this. We can Alex terminal, and let's do a query. So xbps query. Let's man that so that we can see what the command will have to be. I can't remember off the top of my head. So we want list packages, no, list manual packages. So sudo xbps query -m. All right. So these are all the packages that are manually installed on Jackaroo 2. Most of these need to be here, but not all of them. So ALSA plugin, ALSA utils, Audacity. So if we wanted to get rid of like audio, we could get rid of ALSA utils and ALSA plugins and Audacity, but no. Base system, cups filter, that's for printing, curl. I could probably get rid of curl and not really have much of a problem, but yeah. Dbus is a requirement for LXDE. Draw term, which I use pretty much all the time for remoting into my Plan 9 system. eLogin-D, login manager. EPUB to text I can probably get rid of. I only need it on occasion, but anytime I need it, I can just install it again. Fumatic DB and Fumatic DB non-free, which were both necessary for printer drivers. I could probably get rid of cups filters, Fumatic DB, and Fumatic DB non-free, and not really have much of a problem. I just won't be able to print. Gmic, that's for Krita, I think. Yeah, it's for Krita. I could probably uninstall Krita too on this machine. Grub, which I have to have. HTOP, JMTPFS, which I needed so that I can mount my my phone as a removable drive. Kdenlive for video editing. Krita, LXDE, LXDM, Mu PDF, NeoVim, Noto fonts CJK for Japanese fonts, and TFS 3G for mounting my NTFS drives, which is part of the compatibility with Windows thing. If I don't need to be compatible with Windows, I can get rid of it, but it's like megabytes we're talking about. NVIDIA drivers, P7zip, Unrar, Pulse Audio, Python 3, QEMU, QR encode, socklog void, Tiger VNC, ubridge, unzip, void repo multilib, void repo multilib non-free, void repo non-free, wget, words en, words mnemonic, xdg desktop portal, xdg desktop portal GTK, xdg user dirs, xdg utils, xfs dump, xorg, xz, YouTube DL, and zip. That is 100% of the packages that I have manually installed. There are a few others that are dependencies that are brought in by all this, but these are the ones that I've chosen to install just for running my system. As far as a Linux system goes, this is an absurdly low amount of packages, but it has still been every time I need to update, I've been needing to clear my package cache. I've been needing to clear stuff out of my root FS. But for the first time, the current update is just straight up too big. It needs more than 2 gigabytes in order to do the upgrade. I might be able to do it piecemeal, like one at a time, upgrading certain packages, and then clearing the cache, then doing it again and clearing the cache. But this has reached levels of bullshittery that I'm unwilling to live with. So my initial thought, my initial like idealistic dream here is reached its end. I could probably put it off again by starting all over and putting out 5 gigs, but with the way Linux is, I don't know how sustainable this is. I really want to move away from Linux, period. I'd really like to just move away from Linux. My laptop runs Void Linux as well. It's got all the same packages, maybe a few more. It's definitely got more because it has Firefox installed. I've been running away from the mainstream. I've been and not just like the mainstream because the mainstream is bad. Mainstream is bad. It is bad, but it's not just bad because it's bad. It's bad because of capitalism, right? Like profit motives and politics and the things that are desirable within that paradigm, and the ideologies, the way of thinking that bloat is good and bloat like it's not just that bloat is like ignorable. It's that it's better to create unnecessary work because then people have things to do. And people don't really think about it. People don't really think about things in this way, but it is the way that the system is set up. It's better to create unnecessary busy work. It's better to reinvent the wheel as many times as possible. It's better to do that because then people are occupied with, quote, productive things to do. It's better to build something that will break so that you can build it again, so that you continuously have things to build. This pattern is ridiculously prevalent within all of modern society, and it's definitely prevalent in software. And we've reached a point where it is becoming unignorable that this is a problem. And so seeking solutions to this, seeking ways out of it, and seeing that the ships, every single ship that I was on, every single boat that I was on, is going to eventually crash. It's going to eventually sink under the burden of all of this weight. It's better to be on a kayak that definitely won't sink than to be on the Titanic. You know it's coming. You know what's going to happen. It's written in stone. It's the future. It's definitely happening there. Unless some amazing miracle takes place. But I don't think that miracle is going to come from anyone on that boat. All those boats. The Windows boat. The Linux boat. There might be... It's conceivable that such a miracle could come out of the iOS boat, the Apple boat. I will allow for that within my framework of thinking. It's possible. I think it's unlikely without Steve Jobs. If Steve Jobs was around, I think it would be far more likely because he would be the kind of person who would see the writing on the wall at this point. And I am less sure that that is possible without him. But because they have a ethos of designing their own hardware and designing the software for the hardware and taking care of the entire chain, they source the material. Like they are involved with every chain, every link of the chain, from beginning to end of their devices. Well, up to the point where it goes into the consumer's hand. I'm not so sure about their how they handle the death of the devices. I'm not positive that they have a sustainable model for that, but because they develop their own hardware, they are a company who could pivot, who could say, this is a problem, we're going to resolve it. And I believe that the gains from their M1 chip or whatever is almost certainly entirely removal of bloat that exists within the ecosystem elsewhere. The fact that nobody knows how NVIDIA chips work, and I don't mean nobody outside of NVIDIA, I mean nobody knows. The fact that there is no point, there's no target, there is no API. The fact that their drivers are bloated with needing to support tons of chips which don't need to exist, that they have to hit all of these different targets, markets, that causes every single card to run worse. From the user's perspective, it sure is convenient to be able to just plug something in and have it work, but it comes at a cost. And this cost is here and now. It is destroying the software industry. Things don't work better now than they did 20 years ago. They just don't. Things are worse now. And it's the web, it's JavaScript, it's everything from that point on. These were the points that this far back when JavaScript was created and the ball entered the court and it was just run with. This was the point at which the entire industry moved down a road that the future was only bad. There is no saving it down this road. And so the obvious direction is to pull back and go, well, Plan 9 was before that point. Plan 9 looked into the future and saw this potential reality and had a solution for it. They had a solution. It's not profitable. It's not something you can monetize, and it's not something that can be bent to the various wills of all these giant companies. They can't put tracking metrics in it. It is robust and sustainable and free, independent of any possible corporate control. So of course it's not going to succeed. But now more and more people are looking at it and being like, there really was something there. That really was the way we should have gone. So Linux is a sinking ship because even its core philosophy is already bloated with all these ideas. And so I've been thinking about getting rid of Windows. That should be an easy thing. I don't like making changes though. I don't like making decisions that put me down a road of permanence. I want to be simultaneously walking all paths. Because there is potentially, theoretically, it's possible there's something good still down that road, right? Just because that road is going to end, just because that road is a sure death at some point, doesn't mean that there isn't something valuable to pick up and move the idea of across. So it's frustrating. Getting rid of Windows would allow me to easily free up some space on my disk, make my root FS something like 100 gigs, kick that can down the road quite a ways. Linux is definitely going to sink eventually. It's making decisions that, architectural decisions, philosophical decisions, political decisions. One day it's going to be nothing but app packs and virtualized containers inside virtualized containers inside virtualized containers. It's going to be statically built programs because it's the only way to get around the problems that it has. It's the only way to fix the issues. And there is resistance. Void Linux resists this tendency. Artix resists the tendency. Gentoo. But even Arch has has made steps in beyond just taking upstream, beyond just accepting the decisions that the Linux kernel makes, which everyone is doing. No one has forked the Linux kernel because it would be retarded to do it. So everyone is being drug along down this path, regardless of any decisions they make within their own distro. But certain distros are, Ubuntu is leading the charge down this road, right? Like Ubuntu is not just being drug along by Linux, but they are dragging Linux itself down this road too. Red Hat, Fedora, they're dragging Linux in this way. They basically run Linux. But these quote elitist distros that resist the more radical kind of changes that are happening, tech conservatism, neo-Ludditism, you might call it. This tendency doesn't come out of nowhere. Maybe I'm just a boomer on the internet as far as technology goes. I'm just a neo-uniboomer, the unidoomer. It's not a good place. We're not in a good place, and we're definitely walking down a bad road. And so I try to see what's reasonable. What is reasonable? It's not reasonable, I don't think, to be like, okay, everyone should change to Plan 9 right now. Like, that's not reasonable. Plan 9 is not something that everyone should be using. Unfortunate as that may be. It's hard enough to get your head around it as someone who is into technology. But there is a future down the Plan 9 road that was never taken. There is a point at which something from the Plan 9 fork of reality is something that everyone should switch to. It is the life rafts that everyone is going to have to jump to. And those life rafts don't exist yet. They exist in the future. They are something that can exist. Plan 9 has problems, though. Those problems come from the fact that the industry is the way it is. 3D graphics. That's something that Plan 9 does not really have. Video capacity, poor. Very poor. Wi-Fi driver support, that's something Linux struggles with sometimes. Because there's no approved standards. There's no solution for any of these things. Now, in a bright, shining Plan 9 future, the Wi-Fi module is a Plan 9 system. It is an entire Plan 9 system by itself. And all of your peripherals are. Your mouse, for fuck's sake, it should be a Plan 9 system with these new mice that have all these crazy buttons. Your keyboard, your phone, and they should all exist within a grid, your own home grid, right? This future, when you really think about it and you really get into the Plan 9 philosophy, you can see what could be, and it's super frustrating. It's super frustrating that, like, you can't do it yourself. You not even if all of the people who can see this future work together will it happen, because NVIDIA is never going to make the changes that they need to make in order to make it a possibility. The NVIDIA graphics card should be an entire Plan 9 system with a CPU or GPU, compute. It should have its own displays. It should manage all of that stuff itself, and it should present to the host system a file system to control it. It should say, hey, here's how you do shit with me. Write files to these places. Give me polygons. Give me shaders. It's not ridiculous. It's not insane. It's not something crazy. It really isn't. It's it's just not profitable. The driver wouldn't exist. without the driver, without that convoluted clusterfuck of a program that's doing literally who knows what, no one knows. It's a wiretap. It's something that it keeps heuristics. It's stealing your compute. It's running Amazon cloud services in the background using your machine. Like this kind of paranoia. It's not just fake. It doesn't come out of nowhere. Maybe the way that I think about things is a little bit more extreme than the reality of the situation, but the fact is, when you are lean, you notice when the NSA is spying on you. You notice when Microsoft is taking 20% of your compute to do something else with it, but you don't know what. You notice that it's doing shit when it's lean. When a web page takes gigahertz of processing power for seconds, billions of calculations, literally tens of billions of calculations. When loading up yahoo.com takes more processing power than it took to land on the moon, what is it doing? It's not sustainable. It just isn't. And you know, it wouldn't fix everything, right? If the GPU had a Plan 9 system that was running and it presented its file system, it could still connect through your network to its host, like NVIDIA company, so it could download whatever stuff and it could send whatever telemetry back. It wouldn't get rid of this potential like thing that's happening for sure right now. It'd be better. It'd be manageable. So I don't know if I should get rid of Windows. I'm thinking about putting 9 front on my ThinkPad, but then I wouldn't have access to Krita, and I use my ThinkPad for Krita because it has the drawing tablet. I want another Plan 9 machine. I want to start building a grid. I want to start doing it because I need to learn more about how Plan 9 works, and the only way to really get my head around it is to just dive in and mess with things, set things up. I eventually want to set up a VPS that's running 9 front, probably with Ant. I want to play with Ant a bit. I'm not sure about that though. It's advanced namespace tools, I think. No, run authentication server. I already have authentication set up on my on Mugi. So I'd still want to use that for authentication and set up like a Raspberry Pi. I have like 3 Raspberry Pis. None of them I'm using for anything. I got them back when I was working at Grandstream for doing programming, using them as like SPI programmer. But they haven't really done anything since then. I installed 9 front on one of them a while back, but it was only set up to be a terminal, and I didn't know how to set it up to. I wanted it to set it up with no storage, just as CPU and authentication. And I wanted to set up another one to just run CPU and storage, and then run my website off that one. This is like the ideas that I had, because if it's a Raspberry Pi is my public facing thing, and I have like authentication on that one, and have that be public too, so I could authenticate from outside network, then the VPS could connect to the authentication server, and then the website could be served off the Raspberry Pi. In the meantime, before I have a VPS. The VPS isn't a great solution for everything, but I've been having problems with IPv6 stuff on my local network. It's not routable. IPv4 routes fine, but IPv6 doesn't. I'm not sure why. I just feel stupid. I'm paralyzed by things, by thinking about things. Works is the death of better. If you have something that works, you have no incentive to make something better. And that's the problem that has encumbered the entire industry for decades now. We've had something that works, and you build on that. It doesn't matter if it isn't good. And when you stack something that isn't good on top of something that isn't good, on top of something that isn't good, like X64 is already something that's not great. It's okay. It's better than some things. But it's the boat that I'm on already, and not really interested in getting out of that. I don't have the funds to build an RTOS or a Risk or ARM or whatever, Risk 5 or something. But Plan 9 would allow for that. Plan 9 grid can easily run multiple architectures with the same operating system very easily. A single system can serve like kernels from all kinds of architectures. So it's not a huge problem. If you're in the 9 front or Plan 9 boat, you're pretty architecture agnostic. I mean, not 100%, but basically every architecture that matters. I'm pretty sure porting to new architectures wouldn't be impossible either, or even difficult. But I need to learn more. And the way I've been learning, when I was young, I really focused on the details. I drilled into the details. I was very detail oriented, and over time, I've broadened my view little by little, gradually. I no longer just saw the bits. I was taken from that world up and up and up. And now it's very difficult for me to see any of the details. Like, I'm so high level abstract. It's easy for me to see these giant patterns that repeat through reality. It's easy to see the machinations of this stuff, but to then zoom back in on this one thing is difficult. My mind doesn't want to do it. It's still like looking for an alternate path, still trying to see another out, but it doesn't feel like there is another out. It feels like this is the only one. Part of me thinks that that's just because I haven't looked enough. There's always people doing different things. There's new things happening all the time. 9 front isn't a big thing. Plan 9 isn't a big thing. It's certainly old. It's certainly been around a long time, and it certainly had a lot of influence. And it persists. And it persists because it's a good idea. I don't know if there is anything. Nothing else has the DNA. Plan 9 came out of Bell Labs. At the time when Bell Labs was doing the best stuff in the technology space that has ever been done. Every good idea about software and hardware, about how things should be done, came from there at that time and at that place. There are other things that were happening in other places that were possibly as good, but nothing that had the same longevity, nothing that had the same impact, and nothing that stuck around. I mean, like Oberon, it's not still a thing. Today, the best we have is cheap facsimiles of ideas that were done better 30, 40 years ago. It's the best we have. And it's damn hard to look at some of the technology we have and say, well, fuck all that, I guess. You don't really want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. GPU tech is incredible, and it is super useful. It could be so much more than it is. It's hamstrung and tied down, and locked up. And to move into Plan 9 and 9 front, you have to just say, well, fuck it, I guess. Maybe Plan 9 and 9 front, they don't want that anyway. Like, what's GPU acceleration going to give you? The ability to make games? Who cares about games? A lot of fucking people care about games. But it's not just games. It's not just games. This is one of my problems with Plan 9 front, as it exists, is that it is essentially, the core idea of it is essentially unchanged since it was created. I'm not, like, smart. I don't know, like, the details of a lot of stuff. I'm not super well versed. My autism has taken me down many roads. I have drilled down into many roads, and I have pulled up and drilled down and pulled up, and constantly moving higher and higher up. And I'll drill down into just the most worthless shit. I know more about more things than most people, simply by virtue of spending all of my time learning nonsense. I have watched more YouTube videos, more how-tos, and more tutorials on more topics than anyone should. While most people are working, I have been mostly unemployed. I've had a few jobs. I've spent a good chunk of my life playing a bunch of games. But the thing that I've done the most, and I've done it since YouTube came into existence, I've spent time, just tons of time, reading Wikipedia articles and watching YouTube videos about just science shit and technology shit, and nothing has changed fundamentally. Like, we have some advances in quantum shit, and battery tech has improved a bit. Solar stuff has, most things have just become more ubiquitous. The things that were theoretically possible and, like, in principle possible, like 20 years ago, are now fairly ubiquitous, essentially. Certain things have gotten smaller, like cell phones. Cell phones are miniature supercomputers. I'm not like a genius or anything. I've been called that in my youth, and I never felt it was true. I became an Eagle Scout at 13 years old. That was the height of my, like, that is the peak of my achievements. I had my AA before I graduated high school, and then I went to school for engineering, and I dropped out of college. So I have a degree. I have a college degree, but that's the one that I had before high school, and it's an Associates of Arts. That's me. Since dropping out of college, I've worked as a freelance software engineer. I have worked as phone tech support for video games, and I've worked at a company that makes routers and access points. Total work experience, if you add all of that up, since college, it's probably 4 years of time that I was working, and about 7 years that I wasn't since college. 6 or 7 years. 5 years maybe. So since 2007, there was a 2-year period where I was on a mission, then a 5-year period when I was at college, and then dropped out. If I would have gone for not 2 degrees and just 1 degree instead, I would have finished, but I wanted to be cool and get 2 degrees. So during that 5 years, I spent probably half the time doing college shit and half the time, watching other shit. I've watched a lot of anime, but that's learning about social shit, because autistic as fuck. Helps me socialize, understand the human condition. But it's very clear to me, despite my very limited scope and my lack of credentials as the world would see it, it's clear to me that if you were to make Plan 9 today, it would be very different than what it is, the real Plan 9, what the real Plan 9 is. Because the future that Plan 9 predicted did occur, but like more than it thought. So Plan 9 was ahead of the curve when it came to thinking about user interface, the windowing system, and the mouse pointer, and how you would interface with things, and contextualizing, and the namespacing, and the distributed nature of it all. It predicted, and in some ways influenced, the way things would be. But before, when I was saying that your keyboard should be an entire Plan 9 system, that is not how things are. I mean, sort of. So USB is this protocol. Right? USB has this kind of, it's a universal protocol, wire protocol, and USB 3, like USB-C cables, it's designed to interface with any kind of device, but as a peripheral, right? The computer and the keyboard, they have a master-slave relationship. And this is an idea that I think is kind of problematic. This concept, it's not problematic in the liberal sense, but it is problematic in that it is very limiting in terms of how you think about devices. Your keyboard should just be a device on your local network. That's it. Just a device on your local network. It gets its network capabilities from the host machine, or the terminal, or the thin client that it's attached to. But the implicitness of that slave relationship, it should be something that is probably there by default, because you need to be able to just plug in your laptop or your keyboard into your terminal and be able to type into your terminal. If you don't know how Plan 9 works, none of this is going to make any fucking sense to you, but I'm assuming you know more than nothing about Plan 9. So some amount of work would be needed, right? If you were envisioning a reimagining of how the Plan 9 system works, where this is the case, because before it wasn't the case that a keyboard would conceivably have enough processing power to handle that. Today, this is not the case. An Inferno kernel is much smaller than the firmware that is probably on my keyboard. My keyboard supports connecting to multiple devices over Bluetooth, and it has USB-C, and it has all these different features that it handles internally. It has all this statefulness, and it is not inconceivable that on the microcontroller in there, it could run Plan 9. Okay, this is not far-fetched. It sounds far-fetched, but it isn't. It takes a tweaking of your mind, thinking about things. But what this allows for, what this change in thinking about your keyboard as a peripheral, no, it's a machine. It is a full machine. Your display, it is an entire Plan 9 machine. Your laptop obviously is an entire Plan 9 machine. And your phone is an entire Plan 9 machine. Your tablet is an entire Plan 9 machine. Your television is an entire Plan 9 machine, right? Your television is a fucking supercomputer from the 70s, right? It runs Netflix, for fuck's sake. It's not crazy. It's not insane to think about things in this way. And so it would take, right now, the way Plan 9 is set up is very manual. It's very manual. You have to know all the IP addresses of things. You have to do it all. It's a clusterfuck, just a total fucking disaster. And so discoverability of devices is something that would need to be prevalent, right? The idea that graphics are first class, right? The kernel starts up and you want graphics as soon as possible. Everything is text. In modern, quote modern Plan 9. This was modern in the 70s or 80s. This needs tweaked a bit, because then graphics were hard. Graphics were fucking hard. Graphics were a thing that you wouldn't want to be rendering all the goddamn time. 3D, get that thought out of your mind. 3D is, it can't be first class because we don't have the processing power. If you're doing it now, the obvious implication is to make 3D first class. This can be done even with just CPU. We know this because take a look at Temple OS. Temple OS is a big fucking meme. Haha, let's all laugh at Temple OS. But seriously, take a fucking look at it. It has all the hallmarks of a new next generation way of thinking about what an operating system is and how it should work. And taking the good ideas from Temple OS and merging them with the good ideas from Plan 9 is that is a way forward that is quite compelling. Graphics, first class. Sprites, 3D graphics, first class. A reimagining of how you interface with the file system and do things, so that the 3D environment is natural and intuitive. Primary inputs, touchscreen, because everyone fucking has a high pixel density touchscreen camera gyroscope in their pocket, and to be able to get access to all that information and to have it seamlessly on your laptop or your desktop, and be able to interface between these two devices seamlessly, be able to draw something on your phone and control your desktop with it, to be able to navigate a 3D environment using a 3D input device. These are not inconceivable concepts. Most of this stuff has already been done many times in all kinds of shit. Looking at augmented reality and really thinking about what ways, not just how it's being used right now, but the future of that, and plan in a Plan 9 way. This is what a Plan 9 of today, a modern Plan 9, needs to think about. And there's no interest in the 9front community to really think about these questions or do that. They're working on slowly iterating and building, but this is the path of destruction. This is the design methodology that causes problems. This is the road you should not go down. This is bad end land. Plan 9 is amazing because it was created from ideas and created as a whole thing all at once. And to do a modern Plan 9 in the modern world, a true Plan 9 successor in the modern world, has to be maybe just take the kernel, or the ideas of the kernel that still work in this new modern world with all kinds of peripheral devices being host systems. As far as discovery, that's something that has to happen at the kernel level to be really Plan 9-y. You need to have AR at the kernel level, because all of this stuff, the environment has to seamlessly work with it, right? In Plan 9, your network interfaces is seamless. It's transparent. It just works. And the reason why that is because the kernel handles it. The kernel knows how to do all that shit. And so this is the thought that just keeps coming back. It keeps coming into my mind, and I can't get rid of it. I can't put it out. But I don't know how to move forward with it. I don't know how to create a vision of it that communicates what I mean, and get a zeitgeist in this direction, because it sounds crazy, especially to someone who doesn't know what the fuck 9front is, or Plan 9. It sounds like just you're talking nonsense. When I say it, it feels like I have to, I'm convincing myself that it's real, that it's a thing that is possible. And I don't know if it's possible for a single person, but ideally things are set up in such a way where it is. I want to envision a reality where a computer network is made of small, understandable parts that are used repeatedly. The same understandable pattern is used repeatedly throughout the entire ecosystem, so that the entire network is able to be understood and implemented by a single person. That is a stretch. But unless we get to that point, if a single person can't understand how to implement an entire system and every single part of it, a downward spiral is inevitable. A technological dark age is the only future. You need to be able to communicate it. You need to be able to teach. You need to be able to learn it. Now, obviously, what that core enables can be greater than that. What that core creates can be infinite permutations. But unless that kernel, that idea, is something small enough that one human lifetime is enough, it's just going to be lost. Everything that stands on it is just going to be lost. Part of me looks at something like Godot. Godot is a game engine, open source game engine, and it is fairly small. I think it's on the border of understandable. A lot of problem with a lot of the reason why things get so complex and massive is because you have to handle so many different cases. When it comes to rendering in 3D, you have to handle Mesa graphics, you have to handle Vulkan, you have to handle all these different things, because you can never know what what is being used. You don't know in advance, and that makes it very difficult to understand it, because you have to understand 6 different ways the graphics can be drawn to a screen. Plan 9 has one way that the user space interfaces with that. So if you handle drawing your pixels to the screen in the one way, the Plan 9 way, it works on every Plan 9 system. And under the hood, it has to be implemented. Right? Under the hood, it has to be implemented in whatever way is system dependent. But that architecture level stuff, it needs to be pushed down, as far down as it can. It has to. And no one is interested in doing that. How many x64 processors expose different interfaces, expose different application layer. So your choices are to implement things that utilize certain features, and then workarounds for systems that don't have that feature, and then the same thing for every single thing. Oh, you don't have this instruction, so use this instruction instead, or this set of instructions instead. And it just gets bigger and bigger. Backwards compatibility causes it. It all just fucking stacks up. But Godot has like an interface, a way of creating 3D graphics. It's open source. It's pretty small. It's potentially something that you could use as, like, if you statically compiled Godot, you theoretically could use it as your kernel, right? I wonder what a system like that would look like if you baked some Plan 9-ness into Godot, so you could mount P9 systems into there as nodes. What that would allow for, I don't know. See, like, I keep spiraling outwards, looking for ways of making this thing. Drilling down into Plan 9 is something I have to do. I need to do it at some point. I need to understand it. But I'm frustrated by the reality of Plan 9 and the limitations it has in the modern world. And I don't want to compromise. Everything else is a compromise. If I'm going to compromise, then I may as well just be on Windows. So, should I uninstall Windows?